Well, thank you for tuning in to the Skol State of Mind podcast. I have an interesting episode for you today. We're going to dive deep into why the Minnesota Vikings keep busting in the draft. I got a co-host with me, Mike C. So let's cue the intro and let's get into it.
We in our Skol state of mind. We analyze how you play the line. Purple and yellow, we on the grind. D was the host and he's taking time. With expert opinions, we moving dominion. If passion is in you, then let's go continue. Bank on it just like a stadium venue. The topics we serving up just like a menu. We in our prime, high stepping. You feel the scene like it's cold peppers. Harder like Carter, but keep it smiling. Like this was the catch number 1,000. The show you gon' love it. You better tell your mama, cousin. The internet's talking and buzzing. So pull up a chair and just grab a drink. About the Vikings, tell us what you think. Cause we in our Skol state of mind. We analyze how you play the line. Everything purple and yellow, let's take it up a level. Start the show, yeah, it's time.
What's up, Mike? Thanks for coming on again. Much appreciated, man. I like the conversations we have, man. So, probably won't be the first, won't be the last.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to be on again with you. I'll definitely probably get you on my channel again this year on the Mic'd Up podcast. We'll do some picks or something yet again. But nice to be here, and we got some stuff to discuss because our former head coach decided to throw us under the bus for no reason.
Talk about it. I mean, I talked about doing this video with Mike a couple of days ago, but I had no idea, and nobody else had no idea Mike Zimmer was going to go scorch earth on the whole Minnesota Vikings organization. So, Mike, I'm going to pass it to you. What your initial, when you heard what Mike Zimmer was saying?
First off, shock, because it made no sense. This is something you do 6 months after being fired, maybe not an entire 2 years later, where we finished off a pandemic by the time this article has came out. So many things have changed in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins is gone. Maybe this was the route he went because Cousins is gone. Maybe another way to take a shot at him. I really don't know what the narrative or the benefit was here on Zimmer. But on the second point, the way I view this article was it proved a lot of the stuff I said over the years that people got mad at me for, basically on the tee with Mike Zimmer. Terrible leader. Pretty bad human being overall, for just being honest. Like, poor Chris Boyd and Jaron Hall catching strays for no reason. Like, God forbid, those guys are fringe NFL players. They probably have no more than 2 or 3 years left in their respective careers in the NFL. And you just got to take an unnecessary shot at guys who are special teams cornerbacks and a quarterback who's literally not on a roster right now.
Right.
And the timing could not be any worse from this article to come out with poor Jaron Hall getting released just a few days ago. And you know me, I'm not the biggest Jaron Hall guy, but even I feel bad for him. That's how you know it's bad. And just some of the stories were incredible. To sit here and say they got me fired, Mike, man. What are you saying? Just insane. I'll go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Nah, I'm just saying Mike has to take some kind of accountability for that. You can't just blame everybody. But go ahead, Mike.
No, 100%. And like, what drove the story of that 2021 draft class, I believe it was, or 2020, with Kellen Mond, Wyatt Davis, Chaz Surratt, Patrick Jones. We know those 4 third-round picks that basically amount to nothing. And I can somewhat understand the point of view as Zimmer being upset, but you walk out of the draft room and don't talk to the general manager even on the phone? Are you serious? If me or you did that at our respective jobs, we're fired the next day. It's over. I cannot believe the Wolves didn't fire him. Seriously. I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm shocked the Wolves did not fire him on the spot. That is completely unacceptable. There is no rhyme or reason that can be looked at as, okay, you didn't get your guys. There were a lot of guys, Mr. Zimmer, you drafted, and we're going to get into that later, were complete and utter busts. Or you gave them second contracts, and they completely let you down. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. And it's bad when I started to feel bad for Rick Spielman, who I've said some things about and how he screwed out the Vikings' finances quite badly and with the salary cap. Just an unbelievable article from a crotchety old man who just was mad at life. There's no other words I have to say. It was like Ebenezer Scrooge. That's all I have to say. Can't believe it.
So my initial thoughts is just like you. Like, this is something I would have expected. Like, after the firing, 6 months after, like, okay, cool. Just, you're still kind of mad. Just blow everything off. But the first thing I want to say too with Mike Zimmer, like, we give him grace considering he's lost his wife. He's just recently lost his son. So we kind of give him grace for that. But it's like, for you to come at the organization like this, it's kind of like, we can't really give you that much grace anymore because you're being a sour old man. And me, like, I love Mike Zimmer. Like, I've always, took his back, and I always like, oh no, he wasn't really the problem. And it makes you think about a lot of things now. Like, dang, maybe they should have just fired Zimmer a long time ago and not just held on to him, and just moved on when they got Kirk. And maybe they could have, I'm not saying we would have won a Super Bowl and like that, but maybe the chemistry between player and coach and the front office would have been a whole lot different. And like, the one that got me the worst is when I read it about basically him and Terrence Newman, how he got mad at Terrence Newman for basically speaking his truth, and that they didn't really come to a conversation. And Mike Zimmer is like, oh, we're done. You're dead to me. Just not like, we're done. And it's like, dude, like, you've been with this guy, Terrence Newman, like, for 20 years in Dallas, in Cincinnati, and in Minnesota, and you can't have the uncomfortable conversation like, yo, this is what's going on. This is what the guys are telling me. And it makes me think about that whole mutiny game in Green Bay when they basically decided to do what they wanted to do. They probably were tired thin. And Terrence Newman was the guy that was like leading that charge. Like, I know the defense. This is what we're going to do. And then they, went to bat for Zimmer in the media and was like, no, that wasn't the issue. I bet that was the issue. That was what really happened. And yeah, I just couldn't believe it. It's just like, it just makes me feel like sometimes like Mike Zimmer and these defensive coaches, like, they are so far away from like the real goal. And even if like the general manager drafts the wrong guy or signs the wrong guy, it's still up to you as the head coach and leader of the football team, the players, to kind of figure out things to kind of like smooth this out. I mean, you can't. It's a 53-man roster, so just in case Rick drafts a guy you don't like, you can't tank the whole season and be like, well, I didn't like that guy, that's why we lost. And it's like, nah, you're a coach. Like, you got to try to, mask the situation. I just believe too, though, if Rick was actually going, I'm not gonna say Rick was going rogue, but if Rick was actually like, I'm gonna do what I'm going to do on the draft, he already had disconnect from Zimmer to begin with. Like, you just don't do that off the top, because if you think about the drafts beforehand, they kind of like worked together and things worked out. And this is why we have to get through this first, because this is where all the draft busts come into play. And it makes a whole lot of sense now, because it's like you got Mike Zimmer over here, you got Rick Spielman over here, and there's two different philosophies on how to build this team out and go in the future. Rick wants it his way and Zimmer wants it his way. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, you guys need to sit down and got a good plan. So come on, Zimmer. Come on, Zim. Come on, Zimmer.
If there's something I could add on there, I love the point you said. That's why I love coming on the show every little once in a while, because there's a lot of points you make on my spaces and on recording now that I love. And I didn't even think about the mutiny game in Green Bay. I completely forgot about that, because how many years ago that's a fantastic point. And best believe there absolutely was things that we still don't know that went on, but this confirmed he was not a locker room guy. And the DC with the challenge flag, he really, really was a DC with the challenge flag. And one last thing I want to add here, and obviously, I'm a pretty big supporter of Cousins, not a Kirk Crusader. I've criticized him. I've given him his fair share of criticism when he played bad for us. It really does make you think, though. Like you said, had Zimmer gone, could have they been a little bit more successful? Could have they utilized money better? Could have they built a better offensive line around Cousins earlier in his tenure? And maybe the narrative is different. And again, I agree with you. I don't think we would have won a Super Bowl either, but you don't know. No. And they gave Cousins as little opportunity as possible because of the way Zimmer coached this team. and managed the financial moves at free agency alongside Rick Spielman. And a lot of them came back to bite us in the butt. Michael Pierce is the one that comes off the top of my head. I mean, the guy barely played. I mean, he took the COVID year because I think he has asthma.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. But again, do your research, Vikings. If you know this guy has asthma, I might not play the year. Like, come on. That's really, really bad organization. And so usage of money was poor. And when he played, he wasn't great. He wasn't a game changer when he played. He's back in Baltimore. So what does that say? That no other team, aside from the Ravens, who utilized him best to begin with, went back with him. And like I said, last thing I want to add on is I think Cousins deserve better. And I think it cemented that, this article, that Cousins absolutely deserve better. If you look at what he did with Kevin O'Connell, I think he was starting to turn a lot of the narratives around in Minnesota. It's a damn shame that he tore his Achilles when he did.
Correct. Like, I agree with that. And the thing with the whole Michael Pierce situation, I think now too, it like my theory was always like Rick does things to make sure Zimmer doesn't get mad. And now you see why. So he goes out there and, oh, you need a defensive tackle. I'm going to give you a defensive tackle so you can just shut up, right? And then I'm not going to worry about, what the contract looks like. We're going to stack it with 4 years just so we can get you a guy so you can just be quiet so I can work your draft. You can't win that way. you just can't. So my opening theory on why the Minnesota Vikings been busting in the draft is Kirk. And it's not Kirk's fault. It's the fault of the organization not being on the same page. And the fact that with Kirk Cousins commanding so much of the salary cap, you have to use the draft capital to fill the needs of the roster. And now that we know Mike Zimmer was one kind of way with how he wanted to do, now you see why these guys bust so bad, in my opinion, is because they reached for need. And if you go back, perfect example, the Adrian Peterson draft, we didn't need Adrian Peterson on that team because Chester Taylor already had a 1,000-yard season. It just so happened that Adrian Peterson fell, and then we drafted him, and it was like, okay, cool. Now we're just drafting best guy available. I think once the Minnesota Vikings went to the situation and they got into, let me back it up. Can't blame Kirk. When they got into win now mode, they went to the draft and started drafting for need and not drafting best guy available, because before 2018, like the drafts, it was here or there. It was some guys missed, but they didn't necessarily miss in the first 3 rounds. Like the team was built. Like you had Harrison Smith, first rounder, Anthony Barr, first rounder, Eric Kendricks was in the second round. Like you can see the pillars of that team that actually made a run was built. Like Daniil Hunter was like a 3rd-round pick. Everson Griffin was drafted like in the 4th round or something like that, right? You had all these guys that were drafted on best guy available and going to develop. Well, when you're paying a quarterback so much money, and I do give Zimmer that credit because he did say that, but you still have to be the head coach of the team and figure it out, right? It's 2 sides of it. But when you have that quarterback that's taking that much money, and you have the front office not really communicating with the coaching staff, you're reaching and you're whiffing on all these draft picks. Laquan Treadwell, Mike Hughes, the list goes, Jeff Gladney, RIP, but the list goes on and on because they couldn't, draft for, best guy available. They only draft for need. So what do you think about that, Mike?
No, I mean, I don't really disagree with it. I like the way you described it, because people just blindly blame Kirk for everything.
Yeah.
What the Kirk contract did, and it's no different in Atlanta, and you look at the way they're handling their situation compared to how we did. Mm-hmm. They may have screwed up their draft. I'm not going to lie. I still think Michael Penix was a bad decision as of today. It could be proven wrong, but I still wasn't in favor of doing that if you're going to pay Kirk the type of money they gave him. But you look at how Atlanta has situated their roster now. They acquire Matthew Judon. They bring in Justin Simmons in free agency to be a star safety for them with Jesse Bates. Like, that's a nasty duo at safety. That's got to be one of the top 10 duos easily in all of football at safety. they're doing the right things. Where with Minnesota, like you said, they did not situate themselves in the proper situation. They managed free agency horribly. How many years did we say, we just want a guard? We just want a center. How many years has this team refused to pay interior officer? And they're still kind of doing it today. Crazy enough, they're still somewhat doing that. Now, it's not as bad, but it's still not anywhere close to what it probably needs to be to legitimately contend. Mm-hmm. And like you said, when you screw up in free agency, what's that mean? You have no choice but to reach and force things. But for the fantasy players out there, it's no different than when you're doing your fantasy draft. Funny enough, I'll segue back to our last live we did together. When you maneuver the draft board, you do not say, I desperately need a quarterback. I'm going to force it like a buffoon when it's not there. If the value is not there, if you're going 20 spots below the rankings, it's probably a bad idea. Right. And sometimes you get lucky. But if you do that 5 or 6 times, I could tell you your hit rates are going to straight up be lower than if you just go BPA, best player available. Right. It's no different. That's the problem. When you force picks, you see what we saw. And Kwesi, he learned his lesson. He did the exact same thing his first class, and we all know how that turned out.
Yes. So let's get into the draft picks, right? So I'm not going to go too far back because we already know like that whole run with 2017 that was built before Kirk got here. So let's go to the draft of 2017 before Kirk got here and all the way up. So if you look at that, we didn't have a first round draft pick. We started with a second rounder. That second rounder ended up being Dalvin Cook. Third rounder, Pat Elflein, right? Fourth rounder, Jaleel Johnson. Then I'm going to just read the names: Ben Gideon, Rodney Adams. Guys that didn't make the team, right? So just those top 4 guys, right? Pat Elflein's, he was there for 3 years? That was it, done. If that
only because they forced it, as much as they could. They played him at every interior offensive line spot. Yeah,
but just the guy there was Dalvin Cook. That was
by a mile.
By a mile, Dalvin Cook. So now it gets interesting. So now Kirk's on the team. So let's just think about it this way: Kirk's on the team now, and you're going into the draft 2018. You are strapped with money. Who do you draft first overall? Mike Hughes. And to mind you, who was drafted after Mike Hughes?
Was Lamar. Was it Lamar? It was Lamar.
After Hughes.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that the Vikings would have been better off by drafting Lamar Jackson, not by any stretch. What I'm saying is you needed to get another corner on that team, and you couldn't afford it in free agency because you are already paying Xavier Rhodes. You already drafted Trey Waynes, and he was going to be coming up to the point of getting, another contract. So you needed somebody to play that nickel position. And Mike Hughes was a fast guy, and you can put him out there on the punt team and actually have a dual threat, because at that point, Marcus Shells was kind of like on the tail end of his career, right? We know our Viking stuff. I'm going to let you guys know who watches that. We know our Viking stuff, right? So, and then you got Brian O'Neill in the second round, Jalen Holmes, Tyler Conklin, and here's another one was interesting too. In the 5th round, you draft Daniel Carson, the kicker, another need for the team. And the guy didn't even finish season out because of who?
Mike Zimmer.
Mike
Zimmer. Badly. And Mike Prefer. He also gets a shout out because that guy was just as responsible for poor Daniel Carlson.
Exactly. And he turned out to be one of the best kickers in the league now. Yeah. So out of that draft, the only guy that's on this roster right now is Brian O'Neill. That's it. Because Mike Hughes never really played because he's always hurt. Daniel Carson, we never got to see him as a kicker for the Vikings because after the Green Bay game, he was basically gone. Tyler Conklin was never really panned out as a tight end. I mean,
not for us. He got better kind of, I'd say, after he left, to be honest.
As a Jet.
Yes.
But why would you draft that when you still had Kyle Rudolph?
Yeah. No, there was absolutely some dumb picks. Yeah.
Right. So that's 2018. 2019. Here we go. It's going to get interesting even more. Garrett Bradbury in the first round.
He's still there.
He's still there, right? Second round, Irv Smith Jr. And the guy is basically out the league now. Like
he really is. Yeah, he really is.
Alexander Madison, Drew Samia, Cameron Smith, Amon Watts, Marcus Epps, Oli Udoh, Chris Boyd, right? Dylan Mitchell, OBC Johnson, and Austin Cutton. So, Rick, you drafted all these guys, and only 2 of these guys, in my opinion, actually panned out for the team. That's Alexander Madison as a backup.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I do view drafts a touch differently, but if we're going off perspective of straight up, the guy didn't pan out because of whatever circumstance for the Vikings. Marcus Epps is no different than Daniel Carlson. For the Vikings and the Vikings alone, it was a failure. And this is why I try to tell people, Mike Zimmer was no DB guru. And he'll try to convince you of that. Marcus Epps should still be on the team right now. He was a fantastic safety once he left us. He's been paid several times at free agency and has cemented himself as a really good safety in this league.
And one thing I want to say about that DB guru, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys. When Mike Zimmer was in Dallas, he had Deion. Deion's arguably one of the best, cornerbacks in the league, right? Now, if you fast forward to Minnesota, Xavier Rhodes was drafted in the first round. Trey Waynes was drafted in the first round. Harrison Smith was drafted in the first round. So if you're a quote unquote guru and you're, whisperer of the position, draft guys in the 5th, 6th rounds and develop them to be contributors on the team. That's how we can see if you're a guru or not. Like, let's take that tag away from him now. Like,
great.
Yeah, it's you're dealing with first rounders. Like, it's just like saying, "Oh, Keenan McCardell is a wide receiver guru." How? You're dealing with Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah, I agree.
It's circumstance. Like,
yes. A lot of it is. And I talked about Deion for years. And people say, it's just, he took advantage of the situation. Deion Sanders is probably the most athletically gifted corner to ever play football in the NFL. Generally, he was so good that he could play receiver. He was so talented. It's funny. It's why Travis Hunter is going to be a hit in the NFL draft. He was the old school Travis Hunter.
Right.
People don't realize that, and now he's coaching him. It's pretty cool when you think about it that way.
Cool. It's pretty cool. Like, I explained it to my wife, and I'm like, that's Deion Sanders back in the day. And she's like, what do you mean? It was like, that's Deion. Like, he's that athletically gifted to where he can be a receiver and he can go out there and shut down another receiver. Like Travis Hunter is going to be that guy. I mean,
but we can't have a top 5 pick. We have to believe it's Sam Darnold and really want that 8-win season so bad to screw us out of draft position. It'll be the difference of winning 13 games the next year if we win 8 games. It's that's what people don't get. You lose out on talent like that when you push to always compete. It's not always what people think. It's not.
Sometimes you have to reset. It's just sometimes you have to reset. So the 2020 season draft, first round, we already know that's the Stephon Diggs trade, right? And mind you, Stephon Diggs was a 5th round pick and Maryland, and Adam Thielen was undrafted. That's go back to my point. You're developing players, right? So Justin Jefferson gets drafted, number one, in the first round, 22. Then they get Jeff Gladney because you know why? You failed at DB in 2018 because Mike Hughes never panned out. So you're reaching again. Now, let's go back to it. Ezra Cleveland, right? He was a tackle that you converted to a guard because you failed with Pat Elflein. So it's just like all these things are connected. Cam Dantzler, I mean, I thought the kid was okay, but he never really panned out. DJ
and Zimmer, remember the doghouse? That's another story where it all went south from there.
Killed his confidence, and it's just he wasn't the same. DJ Wanham, James Lentz, Troy Dye, Harrison Hand, KJ Osborne, Blake Brandell, Josh Metellus, Kenny Willikins, Nate Stanley, Brian Cole, and Kyle Hinton. who are those guys that actually panned out outside of Jefferson?
Josh, for sure.
Yeah.
It took a long time. He was the definition of a late bloomer, but he did. And Brendell's pretty good. I still don't think he's a star guard, and I'm kind of scared what we're going to see him do at guard. I think it's going to be Ezra Cleveland 2.0, if I'm being perfectly honest. Can we please stop converting tackles to guard, for the love of God? But I digress. What I would give to have what's the guy's Orlando Brown's dad? What was his name? God, was it Orlando Brown or there was a really good tackle or guard now that had a father back in the day. Was it Jonathan Ogden? I cannot remember which one, but regardless, what I would give to have a Jonathan Ogden type guard in this Minnesota Vikings O-line, you have no idea. But again, it's Metellus after Jefferson. It's not really close. Brendel has a chance. I'm not buying into the hype like others. I'm really not.
I want to see it. I have to see it to believe it. I have to see it to believe it. But that's another thing, though, too. Like you're drafting all these guys, and that's 2020. We're only 4 years down the line. These guys should be contributing on the team one way or another. And
can I have? Oh, so go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Go ahead. I'm just gonna say these guys.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just weird for me. Outside of Jeff Gladney had his own issues, and that's we don't need to go into that. But out of that, it's just like, Justin Jefferson. That was it.
As a star, yeah, he's only a star. And since we're talking about this draft class and the proper details that needs to be put out there, Josh Metellus only became good, really, if you really think about it, in the Kevin O'Connell era. It was not with Mike Zimmer. Yeah, he was a special teams guy.
Yeah, I agree with, and even we haven't got to this one yet. Cam Bynum too.
Yes, he's another one that, again, the doghouse crap, and then he went to became a shell and then had to rebound. Brian Flores is the real DB guru, ladies and gentlemen. He knows how to coach. I don't care what Tua says. He's a good coach.
Like I'm trying to get to the 2021 because Cam Bynum is there, but people forget Cam Bynum was drafted with Zimmer guys.
Yeah, that's right.
He was drafted there, but he didn't pan out until these guys left, and it was even in Donatello's defense that was terrible. That
was dog water.
Actually stood out. So now 2021, you got Christian Darrisaw. This is the draft that Mike Zimmer basically walked out on. Kellen Mond, Chaz Surratt, Wyatt Davis, Patrick Jones II, Kene Wangu, Cam Bynum, Janaris Robinson, Amir Smith-Marset, Zach Davison, and James Wangu. Now that's 2021. This is actually Rick's last draft, right? Mm-hmm. Darrisaw, I still don't understand why they cut Kene. So I'm still kind of like, I don't understand that. Cam Bynum, Patrick Jones is actually still on the team, and that's about it. Kellen Mond's a cameraman now. So,
is that what he's doing for real? Is that actually what he's doing?
Cameraman now.
Maybe don't take any pictures of Mike Zimmer. Maybe it'll be better for his long-term future there.
Chaz Surratt, is he still in New York or something like that? He's still a special teamer?
Surratt is still a linebacker on the Jets, yes.
Okay. Yeah, but I just look at it now like I see what Kwesi did in this year's draft, where he was just like, okay, we need to get younger and fill holes and go best guy available. I made the mistake in my first draft with trading down and trying to, get the most players possible. I need to go and get players that's going to come to this team and make an immediate impact. And that was one thing with Rick, where we have a lot of picks, and it's just like, what are we doing? I think now Kwesi's strategy is going into these drafts will be, if we have a lot of picks, I'm going to trade them up and get the guys that my coach wants, that my coaches want. Like, take it from there, Mike.
No, and I've said this for years, and it stings because we don't have Mr. McCarthy anymore for this year.
Right.
But I came out of that day one of the draft with the biggest smile on my face that night. I have not felt like that as a Vikings fan probably since we drafted Teddy, and it was more to the hope. Of course, every time you draft a quarterback, you have to believe he's going to be the one that turns out. But Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy, if those two hit, those are home runs. Like if it turns out this is the class we all look at and say that saved Kevin O'Connell, and more importantly, Kwesi's 10 years in his Minnesota Vikings coach and GM respectively. And one last thing I do want to add about Mr. Spielman. We were talking about theories of why I think a lot of draft picks went wrong. I mean, if you go down that list of the guys you named, how many of them were just reaches and praying to God that these freak athletes turned out because you got lucky with Daniil Hunter and Brian O'Neill? Ed Stephon Diggs he wasn't really about an athletic freak, but he was just good value. But that idea, you just cannot get away with that crap. It's too risky.
Yeah, it's just like I think Rick was basically drafting from a athletic director's, perspective, like for a college where you just want to get guys that's athletic to come to your school, and the coaches are going to coach them into doing what they're going to do. But this is the NFL; it's the best of the best. You just can't keep drafting like that, and that's probably one of the reasons why Rick is still out of a job. Like,
100%.
It's just it's not making any sense. I mean, we don't necessarily need to go into we could because that's Kwesi's draft. The 2022 draft is just horrible. It's just, but just like I said, if he hits on Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy, I mean, those are two of the most important positions on the football field. The guy who throws the ball and the guy who stops the guy from throwing the ball. So let's see what happens.
I'll put it to you this way: I'll forget about who Louis Sean and Andrew Booth are real fast. Real fast.
Me too. And just like you said, though, it's unfortunate that we are not able to see JJ McCarthy this season, because just by him going out there in his presence and winning a game or two, or just us seeing his development week to week, will be like, okay.
Yes, I just wanted that, but God forbid we have nice things as Minnesota Vikings. That's why I'll still probably, if we ever win a Super Bowl, the next morning I'll wake up in shock. Did we actually win it? You get up and be in shock. It's a surprise and awe, because honestly, nobody can ever call us bandwagons. Let's put it that way. Ever.
That's why I'm just like, when some people out there are like so concerned about this season, it's like I'm so content. Like, it's still a development year. What the record is what the record's going to be. Like, I still say I do want to win some games, but I'm not finna say like we're going to contend for the Super Bowl, or we have to win the North, because I really want to see guys develop. I really want to see what this coaching staff is about. I want to see Kevin O'Connell take a bottom dwelling quarterback in Sam Darnold and actually do something with that. Like I want to see it. I want to see it, because I think if he makes Sam Darnold just basically capable, it's a great job. It's a great job, in my opinion.
It's true. I will say, what a funny world we'd be living in if somehow Sam Darnold threw for 4,000 yards and we could all troll Bears fans. If Caleb doesn't throw for 4,000 yards this year, that we have more than 4,000 yard passers in one season than they do in their franchise history. Mind you, I'm actually very high on Caleb for his ability. We've talked about this before. It's all about the mental with Caleb, but that would be funny. No, this is a big year though for coaching wise. We're really going to know what KOC's made of. If he makes Sam Darnold look like an NFL quarterback, man, I'll be give him the coach of the year. Give him coach of the year. We win 9 games. Give him coach of the year, because that would be crazy.
Because I'm not happy. Like, okay, Sam Darnold's a great quarterback. It's like, if you can do that with Sam Darnold,
yes,
imagine what you can do with a healthy JJ McCarthy, with another offseason that he's going to be familiar with. And now going into the season that he's the man, he's the guy. That gives me hope. That's like, okay, Kevin O'Connell, I'm rolling with you. Like, let's do it. But like I said before, I want to see it. But if he falters out and it's like something different, it's like, okay, like what are we doing here? Like what's going on? Like, like I need these guys to develop bad.
I agree on everything about the J.J. McCarthy development, but how dare you, Skol State of Mind, to say that this season cannot be a success and we're not, that there's a high probability it doesn't work out and we win maybe 7 games. How dare you call this a rebuilding year? Anyway, I digress. No, I know. I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but
I understand a hard reset. And the thing about it is, you know, some fans and some fan bases don't understand. Like, if you want to be the Kansas City Chiefs, if you want to be the 49ers and always consistently and have that window not just be 1 year, you have to have a hard reset, because the Vikings technically have been in win now mode since 2017, but we probably only won a couple of playoff games. But if you look at the Chiefs and you look at the Ravens and the Niners, they're constantly in their respective, you know, conferences, you know, championship game. I want that for my Vikings, and I'm willing to sacrifice one season to develop and to dial it back so we can consistently say, hey, we're in the NC title game. So we can say, man, we got to get over the hump next year over the NC title game. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to be like,
yes,
like the goal is being, oh, we won the division, so we're okay. Like, we did that already. Like, I don't care about that. I want to get to the Super Bowl and actually win it. And to do that, you have to have a hard reset.
And I'm not trying to come off like a complete jerk, but the amount of people, you put it perfectly, but the amount of people, I remember seeing the tweets, oh, what a good season, we won 13. Hell no. We're here to compete for a championship. I don't care at all about the regular season. You know what the playoffs really is, Skol State of Mind? It's a ticket to the dance. That's all it is. It doesn't matter. You go 17-0, 9-8, 11-6, pick your record. I don't care. It's about winning playoff games. Right. That's what it is. It's I still, it drives me nuts that not enough people realize that. The regular season is meaningless. If you do nothing in the post, it's irrelevant. Right. And I know people have gotten mad at me about that in the past. Look, I was at the Buffalo game when Jefferson made that ridiculous catch. It was an amazing feeling that I was at the game of the year, or my first ever NFL game I've attended. But it does not change the fact it was a failed season. You were 13-4. Could you imagine? Like you said, Baltimore, San Francisco, Buffalo, Cincinnati, pick your Eagles, Dallas. Their fans would be angry. They would. They would not be happy with a 13-4 season that ends in the wild card round.
Yeah, one and done.
Exactly. Look at Dallas last year. How many wins did they have? They got beat by Green Bay, and the entire media, because their fan base have higher standards, they hold them to those standards. They want more. And I agree with them. Mind you, I will say, I really want the Cowboys to fail this year, thanks to Mike Zimmer, especially after this article dropped. I might wear my Kirk Cousins jersey and watch that game and be on him back to back like he's in Minnesota still. But I mean, that now you look back, that you like that in his face, man. That was probably years of pent-up aggression on one moment taken. And you know when Kirk's doing that, the religious family man who doesn't even say the F word ever. Right. Like, come on now, he doesn't ever slur any kind, doesn't have any profanity, and that's the guy. Come on, man. Let's get it together. You know, that's all I gotta say about that.
Get together. I mean, and that whole thing though too is like just to go back to the Mike Zimmer, Kirk Cousins situation. It's like you're the CEO of the player group. You have to develop relationships, and it can't just be a relationship with the defense, right? You have to develop a relationship on both sides. Like, I love the relationship that Lamar Jackson has, with Harbaugh. You see him on the sidelines, and it's like 4th and 1. He's like, "Yo, Lamar, what do you want to do?
Yes,
you're the guy out there. Like, what do you want to do?" And Lamar's like, I got it. He's like, okay, cool. And even if they don't get it, he's not like berating them. He's just like, okay, come on, kid. Defense, get out there. We get it next time. What did you see? Now he goes into teaching moment. Like, all right, this is what we saw out there. All right, let's boom, whatever. Then the next time to get 4th and 1, and Lamar wants to take it, he goes, all right, you got it. Like, that's a good relationship.
Yes.
Like, Mike Zimmer never had that with Kirk Cousins. And you have to have that to be a successful NFL head coach. Maybe Kevin O'Connell is that. I hope Kevin O'Connell is that. But we don't know yet. It's still a wait and see approach.
No, I completely agree. On one last thing, since you mentioned Lamar again, could you imagine what Lamar would look like in this offense with Mike Zimmer? I don't want to know what he would have told Lamar if he ran too much. God, I would have been bad. I could only imagine if Lamar went against the grain, pulled the ball from the running back, and went for 40 yards. Zimmer still would be upset. I'm telling you now, you didn't follow the script. I could see it now. He would have thrown him in front of the media instantly.
And it makes sense on why the offensive coordinators always left. Like
yes.
Norv Turner, they said
that was the one that we need to realize most because he didn't get a head coaching job. He resigned.
He resigned. He left his kid there. That's the part that was weird for me. Like you say, forget this team. I'm gone. I hate Mike Zimmer. And then you leave your kid there. You really want out. Like he just. What was the other guy? John DeFilippo.
That was the other guy that got screwed over by Mike Zimmer. Was given no chance.
No chance.
You don't forget that story. I'll never forget. Realistic Randy said this a couple of years ago, and ever since I've heard that story from Realistic Randy, he reposted an ESPN article that Mike Zimmer, after a blowout win over the Jets, told John DeFilippo, "You didn't run the ball enough. You were too pass happy, bro. Whatever's working is what you should want from your OC." I remember. The amount of times, I remember wanting to pull my hair straight out of my scalp. The amount of times this man, and I know you're running back, but every time in halftime adjustments on prime time, we need to run the ball better. Sometimes, man, a screenplay, some play action couldn't hurt. He would run that ball into a brick wall so often, and it drove me nuts throughout his tenure.
But the thing about the Flippo that I started years later, and I started to back off of that he was a disaster, that he was a problem, is he had the right idea of what he was doing. And what I mean by that is we basically signed a quarterback to the highest,
yes,
in history, guaranteed. I am going to build an offense to where I am going to get everything out of that. That arm is mine. That arm is mine. We're going to chuck this because we're going to get it all out right now. And I don't understand why Mike Zimmer didn't understand that. If we're paying this guy all this money, we're not paying him to hand the ball off.
You should have resigned. Mike Zimmer generally should have resigned. And I know people say, "Oh, why would he do?" He took that check and shut his mouth for how many years now? Because now he's doing it spineless, cowardly, unbelievable. If, like you said, you signed Kirk Cousins, that needs to be the staple of our offense. Mm-hmm. I like Dalvin Cook. I was always a supporter of his until really the later years because I don't like paying running backs. And you know that we've had this discussion. And we will probably never fully agree on that one for one about rookie running backs. But that's irrelevant to this discussion right now. You're 100% right. You pay the quarterback, he needs to be the staple of your offense. And that was not the case in the Mike Zimmer era. It just wasn't.
I just feel like now that Mike Zimmer's comments and now we kind of see it coming through. And even though, Rick has been open of his shortcomings and saying I know I'm not, the Viking GM anymore because I couldn't get the quarterback right. That's him having a realization of himself and, putting it in on himself. But mind you, he did help out the Commanders, with their whole situation when they got rid of their whole front office. So, but for Mike Zimmer to do say this right now, I know that his money, basically he's not getting paid by the Vikings anymore. And that's probably one of the reasons why he's back.
That's right.
The money that they owe him has run out. I'm not saying he's broke, but to be that bitter, it's offset language. If you go somewhere else, whatever, it's no, I want that Minnesota money. They I'm not going to coach because I still want Minnesota to pay me. And it's dude, let it go.
Yes. Let it go. And as somebody who was a big Mike Zimmer hater by the end, I tweeted fire Mike Zimmer probably more times than I'd like to admit. I tweeted a lot. And there was a reason for that. but man, it was over. Nobody's talking about you in that city anymore.
Yeah.
It was done. Like, we're worried about Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah.
Yeah.
We are not worried about you anymore. And you just credit to Rick Spielman. You know, as much as I've criticized him, he's always been a professional. He said goodbye to the players in the right way. Zimmer took his stuff. What a coward. He took his stuff, went to his truck, and drove home. What kind of coach are you? It's crazy. And, like, you know, people say coaches in the old school were hard-nosed. I've watched a lot of football lives over this summer, two in particular, Tom Landry and Don Shula. You look now how their players talk about them in their 70s. They cared about them. They cared about them. They truly, and you could see, they were, you know, when I watched those documentaries, you could see, you know, Don Shula and Tom Landry, their players said, he may have been hard on me at the time, but I knew he cared. Mike Zimmer, I don't think he cared. I really don't. And good on Eric Kendricks for rekindling any relationship they had, because if I was him, I would have been in San Francisco right now, which he should have been.
He should have been in San Francisco. I would have took the Frisco job any day. And he's a California guy anyway. So yes. Well, I guess he got his time in the sun with the Chargers last year. I guess he's okay with not going back for a little bit. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I just don't get it. But it's just like, come on, man. Just like you said, Rick has been a professional throughout this whole situation. And, like, I can see Rick getting another general manager job, you know, in the future. But as for Mike Zimmer, I think, you know, it just goes to show you that, especially like with some of these defensive, you know, guys on that side of the ball, there are just great coordinators. You know, like that's what they are. They're not leaders of men. They don't know how to balance the locker room. They don't know how to, you know, some guys need to be coddled, like quarterbacks, for example. They don't know how to do that. And it's just unfortunate that, you know, we got to deal with this a week before the season starts. But just like you said before, we on the Kwesi and KOC. That's who we're talking about now.
That's 100% right. Like I said, you made a great point there. And I know people say, well, the guys shouldn't be as soft. They should be like where they were in the 80s. It's a different time, okay? Technologies came around. The world has changed from when you were growing up playing football significantly to when kids are playing football now. It's just, and not to say that your era of football is any worse, and I do hate when people disrespect old players and players of the past. It drives me nuts. Just because Patrick Mahomes plays now does not mean he's any better than Tom Brady was. That recency bias crap drives me nuts. But on the coddling, I know it sounds cringy. I know, we're being like a daycare. No, there are certain. It's not. You have to, hug them every 5 seconds. Just understand when it's time to say something. The hard truths. And sometimes you got to take a step back and, let them calm down and have a breather. That's all it is. But
it's just different personalities, right? And just like when you said the coddling personalities things, I think about Parcells, right? Like Parcells coach one of the best defenses in history, right? That New York Giants defense. Lawrence Taylor was a madman. He was a crazy personality, right? Everyone knows that. He used to rip face masks off, all that stuff, right? You don't think that Parcells had to have a special relationship with Lawrence Taylor to get him to understand like what he needed to do for that team? And it's crazy because that's Mike Zimmer's,
yes.
like Parcells, you didn't tell Mike that? Like sometimes you have to coddle certain guys to get the best out of them. Like you must have,
it's fun. Oh, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. No, I was just gonna say, it's funny you mentioned Parcells. I watched his football life this summer, and I don't know if you haven't, go just look up Curtis Martin, Bill Parcells. That's all I got to say. Yeah. The way Curtis Martin talks about Bill Parcells, he said, he changed my life. He was a father figure for me.
Keyshawn Johnson, too, talks about it in the same way.
It's people don't understand. Even these I have never seen a coach like Mike, and that's why he failed at the end. People don't get it. If you're a good leader, the ship would have sailed. Funny enough, Vikings, ha ha ha. But the ship would have sailed the right way. It would have got back on course.
Yeah.
It fell apart because, do you remember, I'm not trying to make this political, but do you remember when during COVID, he brought in a doctor. These are grown men. You cannot tell them what to do. Remember with the vaccine?
Yeah.
And let me make this clear. I don't care if you're anti-vax, whatever your stance was on that, that's irrelevant. But it's the principle of you do not tell grown men what to do. Drove me nuts. That type of behavior.
I got one for you too. That's probably going to be even more cringy.
Yeah.
Sharif Floyd.
That was my heart hurts for Sharif. You know, and probably most Viking fans don't realize because a lot of them just watch the games and la 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 la. If you're out of my life, man, the way Zimmer viciously talked about Sharif Floyd and called him weak, and this guy's leg did not function the same because of a botched surgery, and you didn't even bother consoling the guy and talking to him before you crap on him in front of the entire media.
Right.
That was a disgusting act too. It was horrible. To this day, I feel bad for Sharif Floyd. Probably the best D-tackle we've had. People forget, man, he was damn special. He was damn good out of Florida for those couple of years.
He was the best D-tackles we had since Pat and Kevin.
For the explosiveness, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
He was nasty.
He got cut short because of botched surgery. And I wouldn't have bet you they had the surgery to kind of rush him back.
Yes.
And that's what it was. And it's like the guy's career is over. Like his whole life has been trying to be an NFL, tackle to this point, and now it's over because of one mistake. And you can't even go to him and say, like, hey man, like, we're sorry. This is what we can do. Like, you just crapped on him.
Yes. No research was done. You could tell there was no discussion that was had. A 5-minute discussion. Again, this is what people don't get. It's not that he was fully a DC. It was his player coach relationships were crap. Again, look at what you said with Terrence Newman. That was a 20-year relationship or damn near 20 years. And he's, nope, we're done.
No, you said something bad about me. I don't like you anymore.
Come on, man. Like, as if, fathers and sons don't fight. Like, you don't fight ever with your boss. You've never had anyone, a special person in your life, grandpa that you've ever had an argument with. Like, this is life. No, nothing's perfect. Like, I don't know. What's crazy about it all, Skol State of Mind, or D Woods, is the fact that this was a hard-nosed head coach and he was so sensitive.
Yes.
How can you coach hard and you are soft?
I feel like he's one of those.
It's crazy.
Where he can dish it, but he can't take it.
Yes.
And that's the thing about like the NFL and why some college coaches don't pan out.
Nick Saban.
Exactly.
Sorry. I had to. I couldn't help myself.
Because they can't like talk to men. Like, it's different when you're talking to teenagers in college or in high school, whatever. But when you're talking to men who this is their livelihood, they want to have an opinion on what they're going to be doing. Like, hey, what am I? Hey, I signed here to be doing this, and I'm doing this. What's going on? You drafted me for this, but I'm doing this. And if you can't take that back and forth, you're a coordinator. You're a good coordinator. You're a position coach. That's why the head coaches make the hard decisions and they get paid all the money, because they're able to smooth it out and they are able to have different relationships to all 53 players on that roster, including the practice squad. Like, it's just how it works.
That's right. Look at the way Louis C's family talked about Kwesi, how he handled the there's ways to handle a situation. Look at the way Kevin handled the Josh Dobbs situation. If that was Mike Zimmer, Josh Dobbs would have felt so crap about himself. Kevin goes, and keep in mind, it was 0-0 against the Raiders. He goes, man, with the arm around him, I got to take you out. There's ways to handle it. There just is.
Yeah, ways to handle it. So we're going to end on that note. And thank you, Mike, for recording with me today. And tell them where they can find you at, Mike.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mike Castellino. And as I talk about every time I come on your show, if you're looking for a purple Kool-Aid drinker that is, positive every day of the week, that isn't me, but I'd appreciate a follow. Also, I'm on the Purple Code with Rick Sosa. I know Rick is not love. Again, it's a lot of the same things.
You know what?
Don't judge a book by its cover,
Rick's not that bad. I don't understand.
No! He brings people to games. People forget he does giveaways last offseason. He did it like 10 times.
Yeah, I don't understand if it's more of a personal thing. Like I've had my own encounter with Rick. It's like he's not a bad guy. It seems like a cool dude to me. Like it's just it is what it is. But some people actually get too attached to stuff that's out of their control. Don't be like Zimmer.
Yeah, don't be that. Don't be that. Everyone should be teaching that kindergarten, grade 1, all the way up to grade 12. Don't be like Mike Zimmer. Just put a slideshow on. Teach them young. Don't be like Mike Zimmer. They'll learn who that is. You teach it enough times.
They will. Out of here, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
No problem, Skol.